The morning sky above Willow Creek shimmered in crisp blue, casting a gentle glow over Rosewood Estates, a sanctuary of manicured hedges, guarded gates, and unspoken rules. Outside Rosewood Preparatory School, the daily ballet unfolded. Sleek cars hummed into place, chauffeurs opened doors with military precision, and parents, clad in luxury activewear, checked their watches like generals awaiting inspection. Among them moved Eleanor Vance. Unnoticed by most T-68, Eleanor wore humility as naturally as others wore designer labels. Her silver bun, sensible shoes, and borrowed blue uniform gave the impression of a cleaner or perhaps a long-term substitute. Few stopped to ask. Even fewer remembered her name, and she preferred it that way. Eleanor believed that a school's soul wasn't found in its ivy-covered walls or donor plaques. It lived in the quiet corners, the library shelves, the art room clutter, the muddy sneakers forgotten outside music class. That morning, like most, she arrived early, nodded to the doorman, and walked the cobbled path to the courtyard, her hands already marked with chalk dust and warmth. Children scattered across the grass, their laughter ringing like bells. Eleanor smiled, savoring their energy. It reminded her of all the years she had taught, back when her title had been Principal Vance, not Ms. Vance. Whispered with uncertainty, she spotted a little girl stumbling, her shoelaces flailing like kite strings. Without hesitation, Eleanor moved forward. "Easy now, love," she murmured, kneeling to help. The girl, no older than 7, looked up. "Thanks," she beamed. Eleanor tied the laces with care. "But peace is fragile. What do you think you're doing with my daughter?" Eleanor turned. A tall woman in white stood over her. Perfect hair, flawless sunglasses, and a tone sharp enough to slice glass. Victoria Sterling. Her presence was as loud as the diamonds on her wrist. She had fallen, Eleanor said calmly. "I only helped." "I don't care," Victoria snapped. "Don't touch my child. We're the actual staff. What kind of school lets people like you walk around?" Lily, the girl, opened her mouth to speak, but was silenced with a tug on her arm. Victoria's eyes scanned Eleanor like a barcode, lingering on the faded uniform, the creased skin, the shoes bought for function, not fashion. "You're one of those outsourced workers, aren't you? Wandering where you don't belong. Honestly, it's disgraceful." Other mothers began to notice. A few turned away, pretending not to hear. Others stared openly, emboldened by Victoria's certainty. Eleanor stood taller. "I meant no harm, madam. No harm." Victoria scoffed. "You people always say that. Next thing we know, there's a theft or worse. I've seen the news. We pay for safety here." The bell rang, sending children streaming inside. But Victoria wasn't finished. "This school's going downhill fast, letting anyone in off the street." Eleanor remained still, her heart heavy but her back straight. She had weathered worse storms than this woman's contempt. Yet something about that moment, a shift in the air, a knowing within, told her the story wasn't finished. Inside, staff prepared the auditorium for a special announcement. A new director was to be introduced. The room buzzed with curiosity. Names had circulated. Rumors whispered through faculty lounges and parent groups. But no one expected the truth. Outside, Victoria paced near the gate, still fuming. Her daughter was inside, safe and sound, but the offense lingered. She barked in her phone. "I'm telling you, there was this woman, looked like a janitor, touching Lily. They just let her roam the courtyard. What if she wasn't even staff?" Sarah, the young school secretary, spotted the escalating tension on the security feed and rushed out. "Is everything all right, madam?" "No, it is not," Victoria snapped. "You have unidentified people near children. I demand answers." Sarah blinked. "Are you referring to Ms. Vance?" "Who?" "Eleanor Vance. She's part of our team. Very respected." Victoria laughed cruelly. "Respected? She looks like a retiree playing dress-up. That woman has no place here." At that moment, Eleanor emerged again, holding a pencil case and a few books a student had left behind. She didn't see Victoria until it was too late. "You again?" Victoria stormed toward her, voice rising. "Didn't I tell you to stay away from my child?" Around them, parents paused. Conversations stilled. Eleanor set down the books. I was only returning these. Don't act innocent. Victoria screamed. You're a threat. Before anyone could stop her, Victoria lunged, grabbing Eleanor's uniform and yanking hard. A loud tear echoed. Fabric ripped. Papers fell. Gasps broke out. Eleanor stood frozen, a hand instinctively covering the torn side of her uniform. She bent slowly to retrieve the dropped items. Her knees hurt. Her pride ached worse. Victoria smirked. Now, maybe people will see who you really are. But just then, over the PA system, a voice announced, all guardians, please proceed to the auditorium for the introduction of our new school director. The room stirred. Eleanor rose, face flushed but composed. She smoothed what remained of her uniform. She walked past Victoria without a word. In 5 minutes, everything would change. And Victoria Sterling would wish she had stayed silent. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and staff gathered, all eager to meet the new director of Rosewood Preparatory. Rumors had been circulating about a bold shift in leadership. Among the crowd sat Victoria, perfectly poised in the second row, her phone in hand. She'd just had an encounter at the gate, one that left her both flustered and self-congratulatory. She believed she'd done the right thing by confronting what she saw as an unauthorized person near the children. I had to intervene, she whispered to the mother beside her. It was outrageous. Imagine if we allowed just anyone near our kids. 2 rows behind, Sarah, the secretary, sat nervously. Beside her, the math teacher sighed quietly. They knew what Victoria didn't, that the woman she had berated was not a trespasser, but Eleanor Mary Johnson, the new director. Backstage, Eleanor stood calmly. Her dark blue pantsuit and white blouse were crisp, her glasses spotless. She took a deep breath. She hadn't come for revenge, only truth. A gentle knock. The pedagogical coordinator entered. Ms. Vance? They're ready. Eleanor smiled softly. Let's begin. The host stepped onto the stage. After a rigorous selection process, we sought someone not only experienced but driven by a true vocation for education. It is our honor to introduce the new director of Rosewood Preparatory, Professor Eleanor Mary Johnson. A hush swept the auditorium. Victoria blinked. Confusion, then disbelief, spread across her face. Eleanor walked onto the stage, graceful and unshaken. Light applause rose, uncertain at first. Good morning, Eleanor began. To some of you, I am a familiar face. To others, perhaps just another staff member who moves quietly behind the scenes. I've been a teacher, coordinator, even a cleaner during hard times. And through it all, I've been a learner. Because one must keep learning to truly educate. A few heads nodded. The tension shifted. But Victoria sat frozen, eyes wide, spine rigid, her confidence unraveling. This morning, Eleanor continued, I wore a temporary uniform while assisting a student who had fallen. For that, I was mistaken, harassed, and even assaulted. Gasps rippled through the room. Eleanor let the silence stretch. I do not say this to shame anyone, she said, her voice steady, but to remind us all, prejudice still lives among us. It hurts, it excludes, and it has no place in a school. A slow clap began at the back. Soon, applause rose like a wave, teachers, parents, even students on their feet. Victoria, however, remained seated, face flushed. Eleanor closed with a quote. As Paulo Freire once said, educating is an act of love, therefore, an act of courage. May we all find that courage. In our classrooms, in our hearts. Applause erupted again. Eleanor stood tall, not out of pride, but principle. Victoria hurried from the auditorium, her departure unnoticed only by the oblivious. Later, in the director's office, Eleanor was greeted with flowers and a small box. Sarah, still emotional, handed her a card created by students. Inside were handwritten messages. Thank you for standing up for us. You're an inspiration. Eleanor touched the card with reverence. This is why we keep going. Not for the title, but for every young heart we reach. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Victoria climbed into her luxury car, her fingers shaking. For once, she wasn't in control. Shame clung to her like humidity. No exit button, no command undoing would have been laid bare in front of everyone. In the days that followed, the school released a statement reaffirming its commitment to diversity and inclusion. Without naming names, it acknowledged the incident and pledged to uphold the dignity of every community member. Messages of support flooded in for Eleanor. Emails from parents, cards from children, nods of silent solidarity in hallways. Victoria didn't show up at school for a week. When she finally returned, she was quieter. She smiled more, but no longer felt rehearsed. She no longer commented on uniforms or whispered at meetings. The aura of superiority had thinned. Eleanor, meanwhile, walked the halls with a quiet authority. Staff greeted her with more than courtesy, with respect. Some mothers who once avoided her gaze now stopped to thank her. She hadn't just claimed a title. She had reclaimed a space for every black woman who'd ever been dismissed, for every underappreciated hand that kept the school afloat. To her desk one afternoon, Eleanor looked out the window and thought of the child she had helped, the stunned silence in the auditorium, the students who now waved at her with pride. She knew this wasn't the end of prejudice, but it was a beginning, a flag planted in the soil of dignity, and that was enough.